Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is post-match reaction showtime after Liverpool have just somehow managed to come away with 3 points after what was probably one of, if not the worst performance of the season so far against Brighton and Hove Albion. Certainly one of the worst performances we've put in a game that we've still somehow managed to come away with the win. I think that was certainly up there with the away game against Huddersfield earlier on in the season, where again it was Mo Salah having that one little moment of genius that suddenly made the difference, and outside of that the performance was in general just a bit dreadful. I think especially in the first half, we just had absolutely nothing going forward. I mean, it says a lot that little header that Shaqiri has, that half chance which goes past the post, wasn't just the biggest highlight of the first half. It was the only highlight of the entire half. That was basically the only moment Liverpool ever created any chance or even strung together any sort of passage of play that resembled the kind of creative intensity that you need to get goals, especially against the Brighton side that was as well organised as the one we came up against. So it was almost twofold. You know, Liverpool were bad, but credit to Brighton, they were very, very good for vast stretches of that game. You know, they were very organised. They were very different to the team that we played against last season, who would often get caught out on the counter-attack and stuff like that. And I think if there's one thing Liverpool really did do wrong in that first half, it was that we didn't take enough risks, because the benefits of taking risks in these kind of games are twofold. First of all, if you attempt an ambitious pass, if you go for something that might break the lines and suddenly set one of the attacking players on a run towards goal and could potentially either create a chance or they could have a shot themselves and maybe even score a goal, which was clearly a huge problem for us in that first half. If you do that, then either that happens and you create a chance, or you give the ball away. And in a game like this, that isn't such a bad thing, because Brighton were comfortable not having the ball. They were happy to let us pass it round in between our two midfielders, in between our two centre-backs. Our full-backs were dropping back as well to receive the ball, because if they try to get into the kind of threatening positions we know they're meant to get into, because that's how our system works. And where they need to be in games like this, we need the full-backs to bomb on and overlap, to overload those attacking spaces. But they were getting the ball so little that they ended up dropping back and playing almost level with the centre-backs and the midfielders, which is absolutely not what you want to do against a team as well organised and well packed in terms of just how many players they get back as Brighton and Hove Albion. So I think we essentially just played into Brighton's hands, you know, because whenever we have the ball, we're never going to get through, because they've got too many players. Their shape is too well structured. They are far too disciplined in terms of sticking to that shape. Whereas if you give the ball away, give them a sense of hope that they might be able to create something going forward, suddenly you can then catch them on the counter-attack. That's where we've caught Brighton out in the past. It's where we had our best moments in the first half, and I think we just didn't do it anywhere near enough. So yeah, a really, really poor first half. I think the only player who really comes out of it with any credit would be, for me, Andrew Robertson. I think he was the only player who seemed to be trying to pick the intensity up whenever he got the ball, and even just whenever he was in areas close to the ball, he was making darting runs. He was going into dangerous spaces. He was trying to make something happen and to pull that Brighton defence apart, and no one else really was on the same kind of level of intensity that Andrew Robertson was on. So I thought he had a good game, but apart from that, in general, it was just pretty poor. And obviously some of that I think also comes down to the fact that we played a midfield today that in any other circumstances I don't think we would have gone with. I think if Fabinho hadn't have been forced into that centre-back role, he'd probably play centre-mid alongside either Wijnaldum or Henderson, and we get a little bit more creative force there. You know, I was watching the game and thinking in that first half, essentially what we need is something like what Fabinho did against Man U, where we score that first goal with him just making that lofted pass over the defence. And that's what I mean about playing risky balls. Fabinho's got in his locker. Henderson and Wijnaldum are great footballers, but that's not really something they're capable of doing, especially not when they drop as deep as they did at various points in that game. So yeah, a really, really poor first half. And then suddenly the second half comes around and Liverpool just completely turned it on for 10 minutes. Suddenly Salah was dropping back a little bit, and you know, while you could maybe look at that and say, well, he's just doing it to try and get on the ball more, because that was another problem in the first half. Mo Salah, our best player, the difference maker for us in situations like this where we aren't playing that well, was just never receiving the ball wherever he was, and that suddenly changed in the second half. Suddenly he was always getting on the ball. He was getting it into dangerous areas as well, and then of course it's fantastic work from him to win the penalty. You know, just getting the ball into the box and then holding it for as long as possible. And listen, people will call him a diver because whenever someone wins as many penalties as Mo Salah has done over the last few games, you're always going to get criticism. You're always going to get people trying to make some sort of controversy out of it. You know, newspapers will do it to sell to sell copies and stuff like that. Rival fans will do it because, of course, they hate us because we're doing so well. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to Mo Salah being an intelligent footballer, knowing that he can win penalties by doing that, and obviously being the penalty taker, he wants to get spot kicks because he knows that he can improve his numbers, and he does seem to back himself, and he does seem to be getting better at penalties as well. You know, as he was stepping up, I was still a little bit nervous because his record hasn't been that great, and even the ones he scored haven't been amazing. You know, the one he scores against Arsenal, he slams it down the middle and actually gives Bernd Leno a decent chance of saving it, and it does nearly even get saved. So he's not the best penalty taker, but it does look like he's been practicing because that was a hell of a take from him to absolutely wham it into the side netting. You know, you can tell a good penalty taker from the fact that the goalie goes the right way and they still manage to put it right into the far side of the net. So that was a great penalty from Mo Salah, and yeah, for that first 10 minutes we suddenly came alive. Everything was flowing, everything was going well, we were moving forward with pace, and then after that it just kind of went back to the absolute bilge that had came before. You know, suddenly we lost all tempo and it became even worse because Brighton then started to step it up a little bit, and it was almost the opposite to what you expect to happen in the latter stages of the game. In a game like that where Brighton defend deep and we're just passing it around endlessly for the first 45 minutes or so, you expect the latter stages of the game to be where, you know, Brighton would tail off, they'd run out of energy from chasing the ball for so long, and suddenly Liverpool would get more opportunities, and we did kind of get a few more opportunities. The space certainly opened up towards the end of the game, but partially that was also just because Brighton started to pile men forward. And listen, maybe if they hadn't been playing that low block for the first 45, they would have had the energy to get an equaliser. They certainly came close on a couple of occasions. It was a fantastic block from Trent Alexander-Arnold to make sure that the ball didn't come through to, I think it was Jurgen Locadia, who was just in acres of space with no one around him and would have had a clean run and a clean shot through on goal if it hadn't been for a really good clearance from Trent right at the end. And it was an impressive performance from Trent as well, by the way, considering there was all this stuff about him potentially being injured in the warm-up, and he certainly didn't look right for the first 10 minutes of the game, and I was thinking, just get him off because he's a liability. They're going to try and target him because he's clearly not comfortable. He's not running at full speed. He's not able to get his foot around the ball as much as he'd like to on crosses and stuff like that. But he came into the game, he soldiered through and ended up actually being quite an important player for Liverpool because, like I said, he makes that really, really vital clearance right at the end of the game that stops us from dropping 2 points that would have been absolutely crucial in this title race, because obviously at the end of the day, the result is so much more important than the performance, especially in a situation like this where we've come off the back of a couple of bad results. You know, obviously, I want to see us get better. Hopefully getting 3 points means we kick on and we play well against Palace, well against Leicester, and suddenly everything's rosy again. But today was just all about getting those points that will get us back on track, that will give us belief again, and will, you know, put more pressure on Man City and Spurs. They will be, and it's something I've said in quite a few videos because we've won ugly quite a few times this season, they will be so annoyed watching that game because yet again, that's the kind of game Liverpool shouldn't have won. It's the kind of game we wouldn't have won in the past. It's the kind of game City and Tottenham might not have won if they'd played it this season. But Liverpool somehow managed to come away with the 3 points. Some of that down to the fact that Brighton didn't defend that brilliantly, but some of that also down to the fact that when Liverpool were under the cosh, we did actually defend pretty well. And one thing that I loved was that shot they lingered on. Everyone who watched it on the telly will have seen it as well, of Virgil van Dijk going absolutely mental with about 1 minute of normal time to go. He was screaming at the defence, doing all the hand gestures, probably waving his arms around even more than I do on these videos. And he was just telling his defence, absolutely barking orders at them to keep their shape, to keep the intensity, to just not let Brighton in through the back door. And that's the kind of almost siege mentality you need in some games this season, because every single 3 points is so important. So it doesn't matter how well you play or how badly you play, how good the opposition are or how bad the opposition are. You just have to try and win every game you possibly can. That's what Liverpool are doing at the moment. And like I said, hopefully it gets better. But today I will take those 3 points right to the bank all day long. So that is all for today's video. I'm sorry this might have been a little bit of a short one, but like I said, apart from that 10 minutes where we did actually attack and play well and Mo Salah came alive, bit awful to be honest. We were a little bit pants, But like I said, it's fine because we won the game. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, as always, hit the like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter. And I'll be back soon with the pre-match content for that game against Crystal Palace. Until then, bye for now.